All right, here we go. Episode 7 of the War Room, brought to you by Triple D. I got Mark Elliott to my right, Mitch Miracle to my left. Mark, it's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir. Ever since you communicated that you had this wonderful equipment, we've been wanting to get together. So I appreciate you taking the time and the effort to drag all of this to Sturgis, Kentucky.
Yeah, I tell you what, this will be a story in itself.
Oh yeah.
Just bringing this stuff down here.
Good story.
Absolutely. So, Mark, you got a point series going on here, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But why don't you give us a little background on yourself? You know, obviously you're well known in the Derby world, but you know where you come from, why you do what you do. You know, just a little background on yourself.
Well, all right. I was bred into it by my mom. She took me to the Preble County Demolition Derby ever since I was 2 years old, and I think everybody's got a county fair story like that. But fast forwarding through things and getting many great opportunities to actually participate in Demolition Derby from the time that I first did it, from the first car that I built and got to run. I knew that it was a fit for me. It was something I'm sure many people could agree with, that there's no turning back. There's a bond that you have with other drivers and with that car and with the sport on that track, that it's like an ongoing joke. If anybody says that they're going to get out of it, it's almost like you don't want to call them a liar. But no, I had a lot of fun running over the years and met countless people that are friends to this day. But fast forwarding through the running years, had a lot of things going on in my life, a lot of personal growth that just the time wasn't there to build the cars like I like to build the cars. I would like to say that I could build a car a year and stay on that side of the sport. But when I'm building cars, it takes over my mind. It takes over my thoughts. It takes over my life. It's all I can think about. I love it, and I love driving them. So the fact that I got the opportunity to start announcing when Todd Hollinger of Bell Fountain gave me that opportunity 4 to 5 years ago, it just snowballed. It took over, and it's been a great ride. And you mentioned the point series. It's called the ME527 Unified Point Series, and had a couple different ideas on the name, but I wanted to stick to Unified because 15, 16 promoters are all involved, and it's not something that I know that's ever been done, and it's not something I plan to be that large. I had a goal of not even 10 promoters. I had a goal of 10 shows. I knew that with my announcing schedule, which I think was like 22 shows last year, I knew that I could make something pretty cool if I got buy-in from whether it was 3 promoters or 10 promoters, but 10 shows, and they would buy in at whatever rate that they decided, and I knew that would be fun to track all year. I already done it. I already tracked the things that I'm tracking today. So to give something back to the drivers, I really thought about it like this until I'm really talking to you guys right now. But there's so many people, and you guys Derby, I know you get it. There's so many people, and I don't want to name names because there's so many names that they give vendors, they give and regardless of the reason they're giving, people give so much. I was just kind of feeling like what do I give? And maybe some people would argue that, and I get a lot of praise for the announcing business the way it sat before this, but just to give an example, we had t-shirts, we sold t-shirts, and me and my wife joke she managed that. That was her baby, and she did great at that, and she knows that I would have been like giving them out at the.
I'm as guilty as that with my stuff too.
Yeah,
if my wife's around, she's like, "Hey, that's $20." And me, I'm like, here you go. Here's a hat.
I mean, Butler County, the Compact Southern Nationals, Steve Soap, him and Todd, they're down there. She's got my police interceptor pulled up, on the track, and she's selling them out of the trunk. I mean, it's raw, and Steve and Todd come down to get a shirt, and I don't remember how the conversation was framed, but when Steve realized that she was the one conducting the business and that it was this set price, and that I think somebody came up and said, "Hey, do I get one for free?" And said, "Yeah, right. You got to talk to her about that." And he said, "That's smart, Mark, because you ain't got to hook your buddies up, because you guys get it. He got it like you do. We're all friends, and I appreciate the hat that you gave me.
See, I'm as guilty, right? You know what I'm saying?
You wanted me to wear it, and I proudly wear it. But that's how easy it happens.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I'd like Mitch to have that shirt. But long story short, I could go down that rabbit hole. I would give everything away. So I wanted to give something more than I was already giving. Just in my service as an announcer, I was feeling kind of if a rut's the right word, it's just complacent. The same thing. I mean, where was the announcing business going? What could I do to?
Yeah, Mark, let's jump back a little bit on that. You went from driver to announcer to promoter, an inspector. So you got like a trifecta going on there. So you've seen all aspects of the Derby world. How has that helped shape the point series? Was this something, where did it start? Was it something that you've been thinking about? Obviously there's been point series out there before. I think you've been a part of a couple of those. So
both sides of it, yep.
Yeah. So how did this get started? And, what was your vision originally? Because, things change.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I know with my stuff, things have changed over the years about what we want to execute. And so I'm positive that's happened with you.
So the original vision was much larger. It was so large in my mind that it just seemed like a pipe dream that, man, I would like to see the sport in this place one day. But my thoughts and feelings were to ever get it to that. Like, it would take 100% of not one person's time, but several people's time. So I had this great big old vision, and I could just see, I don't care. I mean, we're being transparent. It's not like I'm going to give out some idea and somebody's going to take it and run with it, but I could just see a group of people that provided a complete service to Demolition Derby across the board, across the world. And there's so many details to that, but it just seemed huge. And all it ever was a thought. So, and I do want to give credit that I started having thoughts like that. It's a couple years back. If you're familiar with Ruts Fab out of Hamilton, Ohio, Jordan Rutherford and his dad, John, and great family, always mass amount of respect for them, and fun, even much more respect now that I actually get to work with them. But his grandpa, John's dad, Daryl Rutherford, he is a pioneer of Demolition Derby in that area. Story that he shared with me was, I believe it was Road Trough back in the day.
Okay.
I believe. But he talked about running 3 and 4 times a week, and he talked about this point series, and he's talking back in, like, I don't know if it's the 70s or 80s. Or
keep that just a little closer.
But
yeah, here you go. Just a little bit.
He talked about that they gave away a brand new car at the end of this point series, and I'm thinking, I mean, Daryl, you telling me a story, because they don't do that today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, man, that's crazy. And it just, conversations like that have just made me think, like, number one, how did it happen then? Number two, why hasn't it happened since? Number three, why is things like that not happening today? So that big vision came from conversations like that. Fast forward to current events. I posted my 2020 tentative schedule. It was like 15 shows at the time, like January 3rd. And Josh Woodward from Indiana.
Yep.
Ed
I know
Woodward,
Josh,
Billy
yep.
Woodward, the whole family, all the way up to Grandpa. Nothing but racing, demolition derby. But Josh commented on my post and said, "Wow, Mark, with a schedule like that, you could have one hell of your own point series." And
so at that point, things just dominoes start falling, or
it
mind starts racing.
My mind went straight back to that big vision and thought, so the big vision never felt possible in my world today with what I have going on. I have a great career, a great family. The big vision never felt like, boy, I could put this to reality. But when he made that comment, I'm like, now that is something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then the details, to your point, the details just follow, and the hurdles come and the challenges come, and here we are now, day 7, 16, 17 promoters in, 26 shows, 8 different states, sponsors. We're talking merchandise. We're talking banquet.
Oh yeah, it's the whole 9. I mean, in reality, you're only 7 days into this thing.
Right.
That's how quick things escalate. Right. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, and in my life, I learned it at some point that like when Todd Hollinger called and said, "Hey, I heard you did some type of public speaking. Would you consider announcing?" And I wanted to say, hell no, because it scared me. This 100% honest, it scared me. I mean, I talked to you guys yesterday, like, there was no turning back after 6 o'clock yesterday, and
no, yeah, you're sitting in your truck, yeah.
I got 45 minutes.
Yeah, and that was real. That was real. That was the realest you ever seen me, because, I would be less of a risk versus reward. If I just aborted mission yesterday and posted some video that explained why I may lose a little street credit, my schedule would carry on, and nobody would hate me out of it.
So what do you think helped you step out of your comfort zone? Because in the derby world, with like just me starting this, I mean, people got to step out of their comfort zone. And, for you to take on this, and I go back to your videos on Facebook. You, in my eyes, were one of the first ones, first names to step out of your comfort zone and put what we wanted to see. Like, we all wanted to see that. We all wanted to see your reactions, your hot takes, after shows and all that stuff. And, obviously that's led into the point series. What helped you, step out of your comfort zone? Because it's hard.
Completely off derby topic. I took a course some years ago called the Dale Carnegie course, and what I learned in that course was to be 100% real with myself and admit that I was living a life of the negative what if instead of the positive what if, and living in fear of, you could name 9 reasons why something won't work, but it only takes one reason for it to work. Mm-hmm. So, that was a breakthrough that I had in my life, and I've adapted and applied that to demolition derby, to my career, to my family, to my relationships, and my life I'm having a good time. It just keeps getting better.
So personally, it was just a personal gain.
Oh yeah, personal breakthrough. That's I personal growth is one of my my hobbies in life. I definitely there's opportunities out there, and there's people to learn from everywhere in the sport and in life.
Well, Mark, you certainly inspired us. I mean, with your videos and things like that. I mean, you always got something to say. I text back and forth, and we'll send some quotes back and forth every now and then, and it's that's all it is. It's kind of just a quote here, quote there, and that's the conversation. And we both kind of understand where we're coming from.
Well, what's crazy about the videos, it's like some of the best things are never planned, and they just happen. I'm texting and driving, and I'm doing things that none of us should really do, but especially traveling back and forth to these shows. It's long drives, late at night, and my wife, I mean, she is flat put her foot down, like it's got to stop, because we need you to come home. You can't keep running in the ditch or in the rumble strip, or quit messing around on your phone. So and making these posts on the way home.
I'm not going to let my wife watch this.
Right.
Because she's going to say the same thing.
No, I know who in my life I need to keep happy. But the bottom line is, I'm like, well, screw it. I'll just hit record on my phone. And it sucks because interpretation of text, especially in Demolition Derby, tenfold, it gets misconstrued. It gets out of whack, and when I'm talking to you and you can hear the context in my voice and my tone and my attitude, you can really feel where I'm coming from. That's why the videos started. Well, then I stopped them, and then people were like, where's the videos? So then I did one year I thought I would be slick and do a thing on my page that said, what's the thing you like most about what I do? And it was just for growth, so I could see what people like and kind of keep polishing those. And that was the thing that came up most, the videos. Everybody's like, yes, your voice. And my wife says, she's like, man, you put me to sleep every night. I just listen to your voice. That's true. I don't know. It must be a gift.
That's awesome. I mean, it is. It's great to hear you at the track. I mean, hell, we go through YouTube videos. Oh, yeah. We were just going through the it was a big hits video. Alex's big hits video.
I said Slina was on there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If you hear you screaming in the background,
and we're like, hey, that's Mark. That's one of Mark shows.
We try to keep it off the rev limiter because I do get excited. I get up there and I'm not trying to fall out of the announcer stand. You know what I'm saying? I try to keep it off that rev limiter, but I do get excited.
Well, I think that's what people want, though. They want the excitement. They don't want some old man that's done it for 20 years. Just
John Cashin for hardcore out in Pennsylvania. Good friend John. I worked with him with Bo Lockwood at the Keystone, and now work with him at hardcore, and he tells the story again and again every time I work with him, guys. He's like, Mark, like, you get me so pumped up when I'm standing there with that flag on the wall. I don't know whether to take off running or like jump out on the track and kick somebody's ass. Like, he's like, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And he said, and then you play Slipknot or something, and I'm standing there like, oh, let's go. That's real.
Hey, the music, and that's that entertainment piece we were just, we were discussing as we were setting this up. But that's interesting. I was, the thing that I like about you, Mark, is when you're announcing, I don't think, I'm not, calling anyone out or anything, but sometimes you watch something, all right, and they don't explain what's going on the track. There's so much going on the track, whether it's, let's say we saw this last night. So it goes fast paced and then it slows down. But when that slows down, I mean, like a guy like you is explaining that, why it's slowing down is because we've knocked some cars out. Everybody's regrouping. You're kind of driving around the track seeing, hey, who's injured? Who's got a tire down? Who's got an axle broke? All that stuff, and you're gauging, and then you're gonna turn it up again. Then it's time to turn it up. Sometimes that happens with a conversation, on the track. But you do a great job of educating, the average fan on what's happening on the track.
Well, that is definitely some of the feedback. In addition to the live videos that people gave, that they're like, we never wonder what's going on because you tell us, and whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know if there is a right or wrong. It's all perception. But last night, number 42, Klumpke, I think it might have been that metric. Either way, right rear frame rail, bumpers off, frame rail digs down. He's got his nose against the wall and he can't back up because that right rear rail was digging in the mud. And as an announcer and as a Derby driver that has been in many sticky situations that I've persevered through, I got to be careful what I tell that driver inside that car, because in my mind, if he rocks it just hard enough, there ain't nothing to a rear rail, especially without a bumper. I mean, rip that son of a buck off. He can't see that. He just knows he can't back up. And sometimes I get frustrated when it starts to drag out and there's two drivers. And for us watching, it's like, gosh, just do this. Hit him here. Jeez, what are you doing? But inside that car, they're fighting for their life. They're doing their absolute best, 100%.
Yeah, and you don't know that unless you're in a car. Unless you've been in a car in that situation, you just don't understand it.
And so sometimes I've done it, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but sometimes, I'll say, Joey's got his right rear, flopping, one shot, and it'll probably be against the hump plate.
Yes.
And then now I've educated Johnny how to put Joey out.
No doubt. And that's what, I love it. I love that you do that. You did that yesterday. Guy with the starter. Okay. He makes a hit. Now,
Luke Warland.
Okay. So who was it?
Luke Warland.
Luke Warland. Okay. So he makes a hit and his starter is grinding. Okay. But you kind of played crowd control here. Because whether his starter was grinding or he turned off the ignition or whatever it did, you know what I'm saying?
Back up.
Yeah.
Back up.
But then you start educating the crowd and you're like, hey, his starter's grinding. Everything goes silent. You hear,
it was winding.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, so ignition was off, whatever it was, but.
I'm a student of the game, so I'm thinking to myself, now, I'm a poker player. How's he doing that? We'll never know, and I could care less if he made the last hit and pulled the wires. I'm thinking, well, I ain't never figured out how to make the starter crack.
Well,
like
I wasn't either. I was thinking the same thing. And actually, so Mitch looks at me, and for those of you who don't know Mitch is my right hand man. We build cars together and everything. He looks at me and he goes, that if you're in that situation, that's what you need to do.
Dude, I helped you build that car. You better win this derby.
Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about winning, and he did what he had to do. And I was seriously like, man, I got to get my notebook out. How was he doing this?
I don't know. I was thinking if he had this wire, and see, guys today are running stuff that I don't even know how to run. I've got 3 wires. I'm thinking, how can I take them 3 wires and make my starter do that? And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe. Well, so the backstory on that is I talked about being a poker player. So a poker player in that situation, if he figured out a way to shut it down and get away with it, he went through the steps. He got his car pushed off the track, but he also went and put a starter on that car using the inspection lift before he came out and ran the metric BP heat. So if he was playing poker,
I'll tell you what, they were playing some serious poker because I don't know what he was doing, but they carried a battery. They took a battery out of that car. I don't know if you saw that. That thing had an Optima in it, and they took it out. And I looked at Mitch and I was like, they just pulled a battery out of that car. And Mitch goes, well, it's dead. He had to go get another battery. He winded it down. The battery's dead. So if he was playing poker, he went to the extreme. He was like, hey, battery's gone. I can't even turn it over now.
Luke is he's in the top class of your straight shooters that you get in the inspection line.
Yeah.
He's always been fair and treated me right, and he's got his wife. She's always by his side. They're just like the poster team for we love the sport of demolition derby, and he's always there to support. I don't believe he was jacking around. I believe he got lucky and his starter went out. Starter goes out on that hit. Old dude can't, and that 678, that boy had a bad to the bone car. That
Yes,
front
he
end
did.
was stout.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if he was or not, but he was real happy at the end. So I imagine,
Right.
Part of that, you're going through that stress of, will this guy get out? What will they make me do? Because,
Right.
he was so excited that I felt like he probably wasn't playing possum.
I don't think he was, but that if a person was able to figure something like that out, that'd be a pretty.
I'd like to know. I'd like for him to reach out to us and say, what were the steps that?
There you go, Luke.
Yeah, what were the steps you took there? Because I'd like to use that one. Put that one in the old notebook. Getting back to the point series here, Mark. What were some things you didn't foresee? What does the future look like? Where does this thing go? Okay, you're 7 days into it. Where does it go?
Well, for me, and especially today, there's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders because I had put so much pressure on, especially demolition derby drivers. We talked about rules and gray areas, to setting the guidelines to trying to foresee what if this situation happens? What if, how am I going to score points? And a co-pilot last night, because I was back and forth on that. My original thought was that it's one car, one set of points, so they were going to split points.
Okay.
And Bill Miller came to me and said, well, if you're going to do that, can one driver just take all the points if the other driver doesn't plan to run the series? And Bill, that's a fantastic, and that's derby drivers. They're looking for that. It's that extra edge. And so I had anticipated letting them do that. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to have to track them down, who was getting the points, who wasn't. And I'm like, keep it simple. Keep it simple. The same as the team points. My original and what I said for 4.5, 5 days was that the only people getting points were the people at the bottom. So if we're 3 on a team and I'm the first car out and you 2 are running at the end and you put out the second place team, you 2 get points and I don't. And that's what I was stuck to until yesterday. And my wife helped me through that breakthrough, and she's over me saying, let me run this scenario by it. Let me run this scenario by it. Is probably she's thinking, but she brought me back to the simplicity, the language that we all know in a team show. If you 2 are still running at the bottom, I'm going home with a Facebook post, a first place trophy, and first place money. That's the language we know. I made that change yesterday, and after I did it, I was like, because I tried to eliminate every possible opinion or complication that's going to leave demolition derby drivers especially like, wait, what now? How is that? Or I wanted everybody to,
because those questions will be coming. And
Absolutely.
I had, so you answered one of my questions, because I have an invested interest in that team stuff this year. And, I want to know, if I go out early, do I still get the points? And, because, you just never know what's going to happen in a team show. So it is. You will get the points.
Yes.
So if my teammates were to win it. And,
yes.
Okay.
Everybody gets full points. So I'll just run. There's only 8 guidelines.
Okay.
I'll just run through one, and
I can throw these up on the screen.
Perfect.
As you're talking about it.
So number 1, you must place in the top 3 to earn points. This goes for any demolition derby class at any show, and I specified derby class because a lot of places I go have that racing type stuff and anything like that. It's demolition derby from lawnmowers to kicker cars, and you must place in the top 3. And
so it is. We can lawnmowers count.
Demolition derby.
Okay.
So we can run
And if
a car and a mower and run 2 derbies in one day.
Yeah, he'll probably get into this.
We'll
He'll get there.
But so there was more than one person, and I mean, there's some people I feel are way smarter than me that have been reaching out and helping, and there was more than one person that challenged only tracking 3. But so example, last night 4 or 5 spots got paid, so it's like, oh, you should track 5. Well, at Florida next weekend, 3 spots are, the most consistent. Every show I go to is 3 spots.
Yep.
I don't care if it's 10, but every show's 3. 3, keep it simple. And if I want to progress through that, I will. So that is guideline number 1. Number 2, you may only track points earned at 1 class per show. And your question supported my decision, because last night, so define a national level show, everybody's got their opinion, but at a show of a Redneck Rumble caliber, people's bringing 1 car.
Yep.
One guy there had 2 cars last night, and it was Luke Warren. That's what I know of, and it's because one of them was a buddy car. Well, if I allowed that, then my county fair guys, who I want to do well, would run lawnmowers, front-wheel drive street stock, rear-wheel drive street stock, and they would be invested about $1,300.
Yeah.
And they would do that at every county fair that I have, and Bill Miller wouldn't bring 5 cars to Preble County in a lawnmower. So I didn't want the county fair guys to have a special advantage over a national level type guy. That's why I chose to do that.
Now, can you take the highest? So
yes.
If I ran 2 classes, can
yes.
I take the highest finish?
Yes. So and derby drivers are smart, So you take a lawnmower and you take a kicker car, and you win with the lawnmower in the first heat of the night. I mean, you might have to think about whether you're running that kicker car, because you scored your 10 points for the night.
Yep.
It's not about. I mean, it's literally.
So that's an interesting question there, Mark. I never thought about that, but that's
there's
definitely
so much to process.
Yeah.
It is like every time I think I've got it figured out, somebody asks me a question or something, and I'm like, holy crap, and nobody else in the world, I believe, will figure these things out and these advantages better than demolition derby drivers. It's perfect for demolition derby drivers because they like to think. They would rather have 6 Band-Aids than 1 big long plate, because I'm going to get an advantage over you because I'm smarter than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what
we like
think.
that. We like that thought process.
Yeah.
So that is number 2. It's only 1 per show, but you can run more than 1 class. That is encouraged, and take the highest class points. So it's 10 points for first, 8 points for second, and 6 points for third. Now, everybody asked about the double points that I have been pounding on my videos. And there were people last night confused about whether they got double points or not. And I changed that on day 4 or 5. And the reason is, it was crystal clear last night. When you make a big decision and you change something, you're not 100% sure if it's the right decision until something happens that gives you that confirmation. So Michael Kelly, DP, last heat of the night, 5:22. I didn't get to talk to a lot of people last night, but I shook his hand and told him I was proud of him, because I thought from the gate he ran that car hard and he drove smart and he won, and that's what I like to see. And he says, did I get double points? And in my mind, I'm thinking, that changed on day 4. What are you talking? But he obviously didn't know that. And I said, I'm sorry, man, I scratched the double points. He's like, what? That's why I was doing what I was doing. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. Did you understand how that worked? He's like, well, I would have got him, wouldn't I? And I said, well, why? And he said, because at the end, I was pounding that guy. I said, Michael, I put up 2 informational videos, 2 awareness videos, and you were backing up from 10 feet away and keeping his hand off the starter button. The only way you would have earned double points if I gave double points, if you would have backed up to the 50-yard line and threw it into the end zone and continued to do it until the officials damn near drug you off the track. That's how people would have earned double points. But imagine me having to make that decision. He's pissed. What? Why wouldn't I have got double points?
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing on the line last night. Imagine there being several $1,000s on the line, and I make an opinionated judgment call. If somebody got double points or they didn't, you're pissed.
So you got rid of that.
Done, gone. First, second, and third, 10, 8, 6.
I love that. Go ahead.
It's simple. It's, like you said, it's your old baseball analogy, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
100%.
Keep it simple, easy. Everyone gets it.
Well, and it's you're getting rid of the subjective decision making,
and that's exactly what Chris Marquardt backed me up in saying to some of those decisions. You got to wipe as much of that out as possible.
Yeah, because I mean, in the moment, you can make a bad decision. I mean, the most educated,
and you're going to.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And then as a driver, Michael Kelly, he's getting out of the car as a driver. We've all been there. We've ran a show, thought, man, I was running hard, dude. I was
watched the video.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you watch the video and you're like, yeah, man, I thought I turned over 5,000 RPMs there, but I definitely didn't, So it's different. I like that you got away with that. Because it's just that could have a big influence, and then that creates controversy, which not necessarily controversy is bad. If they're talking, it's a good thing. But I like that. I like that, Mark.
My biggest fear in taking that off the table was that I pushed it so hard, and my vision was to bring action. So we'll get to how I'm still going to promote that and stay true to my vision. But I just could not afford to make that decision 5 times last night and 5 times this weekend. It's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm the most unbiased person that I've ever met. I want everybody to succeed. I could care less who wins, but again,
and if I want anyone making that decision, I probably want you. But if that money's on the line, I don't want anyone making that decision.
Right.
I don't want that to be in anyone's hands.
And first, second, third is the most clearly defined measurement that I know of in demolition derby. And do people get screwed out of first every once in a while? Yep. But it doesn't happen often. And there's a promoter that bought into the series and their team of people that they've put in a place to do a job. And if they screw up a first place, I mean, nothing, including the sport of demolition derby, is perfect. It's going to happen.
No doubt.
So next is, I talked about co-pilot. We went through that. They both got, so both co-pilots got first place points. The winners, second, same. They all got full points. We talked about the team. The whole team scores full points. In the event of a post-show disqualification for deliberate cheating, and this didn't happen one time on my entire schedule last year. However, I personally have been thrown out of Richmond, Indiana, after getting a check and some money for deliberate cheating.
For the small weld. A small weld that shouldn't have been there.
A piece of 2x4 square tubing in that pocket of a Ford wagon, because when you open the tailgate, you can't see from body mount to body mount.
Yeah.
I was completely underbuilt, hosed the car, ripped the body off the frame, and there everybody stands looking at a piece of yellow tubing that I didn't paint because somebody came pulling in the driveway and I slammed the tailgate shut. And blah, 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 blah. Anyway,
that's funny. That's a story.
If you get disqualified for blank cheating, again, it never happens. But if it does happen, you're out of the series.
Okay,
you're out.
Completely out.
You're out, because it's like I told the Derby Tees guys yesterday, the DTV guys. to our conversation earlier, we as a sport got to stop being the anchor of our success and plating frames and putting square tubing from frame rail to frame rail and putting those inspectors who can barely start a show on time in that position is an anchor on the sport. So that's why I put that in there. Overall Mad Dogs for each class. So I am tracking that stuff. So that's the enticement. Now, they don't earn points, but I'm tracking it and they will be rewarded at the end of the year, whether it's a 4-foot trophy or a 4-foot trophy and some cash or a cradle or...
Will that go to top 3 or is that that's whoever gets the most Mad Dogs?
That's every Mad Dog last night. I will work with the folks that are going to donate the Mad Dog hardware. Jeffy's Fab Farm is one of them that's already stepped up and wants to make a trophy or buy a trophy, however he sees fit to do that. I will work. It's like a one-man band, but I have a team around me and everybody that's been a part of it, they've gave great insight. And so that's what I want to do for that. And the Mad Dogs, they will get to participate in the ceremony, in the banquet, and whether it's 1 or whether it's 3 or my quick answer to that would be whoever has the most.
Yeah.
That's the dude. And in respects to my double points theory of bringing action inside the money, in extreme driving inside the last minute will be tracked. There was one driver last night that got a check for that, and it was the T24 of Tussey in the Mini Madness. It came down to him. He was going to blow that sucker up if they didn't wave the red flag. And he kept pounding and kept pounding and kept pounding. And that's the analogy that I gave all week on Facebook. He's the only driver that did that. And the most crystal clear thing to me as an announcer, it's the last thing that happens. Car stalls out, car's running. First place opportunity, second place opportunity. You're either tapping or figuring out how to make your, we talked about making that strategic move. I'll pick on our buddy Toby. He asked me one time when we left, one of the last times I ran before this past year, but this was back in 2010 or so. I won the Derby and he was happy, he shook my hand and we rode home and it always feels good to win or be with people that do win. Yeah. So it's always a good feeling to be pulling out of the fairgrounds with a stick up. And on the way home, he says, why didn't you smoke him? I'm like, what do you mean? And, man, I wanted you to back up and smoke him. And I'm like, why? And he's like, why? And I'm like, Toby had Derby won. He was dead. I learned from the guys that conditioned me growing up to keep their hand off that starter and stay on them. Keep that noise. They can't hear that starter cranking. Yep. Keep their in there shaking like, quit hitting me. It's like back when you had to touch wires together. It's not that hard now to sit there and smack a button. But I just like, why? And he's like, I don't know. It's pride. It's just what if you just sat there and did that and that whole time and then he got it started back up and beat you. And I'm like, I didn't plan on him beating me, but what you're getting at is like, you gave away a free haymaker. He's dead duck. He's sitting there. Throw the Hail Mary, put it in the end zone. And my fear in that, and my fear never left after our conversation, but my fear up until that point is, I don't want to put myself out, trying to put him out, and then I get second place that way. But his thought was, you got a free shot, take it.
So that perspective's like real interesting because I feel like that's Toby talking as a fan. Okay. And as a driver, he may do something different. Because, like, for me, and it's all perspective for me, I lost the Derby because I did throw a haymaker. And, you know what I'm saying? And then something happened to your car while a guy's stuck. And, you know, that'll be in the back of my mind forever, you know, because of that. So
it's judgment, it's perception, and I believe in the voodoo or whatever you want to think. I believe it's your night. It's your night. I always thought that somehow the Derby gods are going to bless you with that win. But to get out of that rabbit hole about that conversation with him, my point is there's a difference when it comes down to it. And I want the fans, when they're walking to their car, they're walking to the Tenderloin stand, to be thinking, gosh, because that's what they were thinking when they left the Mini Madness and Tussey. I mean, I read the crowd and I can see people fist bumping, cheering, cheers in their beers, and when it's the opposite of the way I've done it many times, and we've all done it, when you pull up and tap them, that's when I got to start that crowd management, because they're like, make them hit. Yeah.
And you do a great job of it, man. Best in the business, no doubt.
So that's my big spiel on how you would earn extreme driving. Now, what the reward will be for that, I haven't defined that yet. It's my idea, so maybe it's on me to come up to define that reward. However, the point is both of these things are not only being tracked because the drivers will be rewarded at the banquet, so there's some incentive there. But in the case of a tie, because the worst thing that could happen is get down several $1,000s on the line, and then there's a tie. So I've got 5 ways, and regardless of the order that I would run those in, most wins, because I like to win. I like to watch people win. Mm-hmm. That's a clear, defined measurement in Demolition Derby. Most shows ran. That's easy. You can look at my spreadsheet and you'll see exactly how many shows drivers ran. I've got most miles traveled. Other promoters that I've worked with on point series have done that. That's something cool. So anybody going to Florida this weekend, that's a good opportunity to. You don't want to rely on a tie.
I never thought about that.
Most miles traveled. You know, if a driver ran 9 shows and he was in a tie for first, and most wins didn't, and most shows didn't get it, and it's still tied. It's like, oh my gosh, and most miles. But then you got Mad Dogs and you got most extreme driving in the money. So those 5 things are the way that I'm going to break a tie, and that's the guidelines. That's it.
I like it. We'll get into. I want to hear more about the end of the year banquet deal here in a second. But I hope you don't mind if I make this point, because I feel like since I've started this podcast and just you've put some things out there, video wise, you can get caught up in the negative. Sure. And it is a little frustrating when one thing is negative, even that's just human personality. So I encourage everyone to, when they look at this series, look at the positive that you bring in, the money that you're bringing, the unity with the promoters that you're bringing, and look at that as a step towards something bigger in the future, rather than nitpick this and say, well, Mark didn't get this quite right. Or this quite right. Don't do that. You're going to get better. I know you. Sure. I mean, you're going to look at it and you're going to overanalyze it, and you're going to be your toughest critic. So you're going to get better. So when people give that feedback, just make sure it's positive feedback, right?
I feel like it's been pretty good.
We can get into so much.
That's the thing. You need to have 10 more.
Something, and I'm like,
I want real. You got to pull the reins.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but we've got to talk about the point series, and I want to get back to that.
Thank you.
So, all right, Mark. So let's talk about that point series and the end of the year banquet.
Yeah.
Has there now? You were around when Dent was I don't want to say around when Dent. I don't want to call you old timer or nothing, but did Dent have anything like that, or did anything that you were a part of have a
I can't speak on behalf of Dent that Derby Icons point series that we ran, they had a banquet.
Okay, yeah.
And I know there's banquets even. There was just one a couple weeks ago by somebody that I work for. So, yeah, there's banquets out there. What I'm definitely trying to do is to I don't want to model any of those banquets, whether I participated or whether I saw what they did on Facebook. I have a pretty crystal clear vision of what I would like to accomplish, and I'm hoping that the closer I get to that, the more that I will like it. Just to be completely transparent, when I'm laying in bed 7 days ago and I'm trying to sell this to my wife, it was way simpler, and I told her that it'll be so easy. I'll have these couple $100 or whatever sponsorship, and I will I'll just do a live video and I'll give the results and I'll PayPal people their couple $100, and that's I mean, and it just went. And then I had people that were getting involved asking about a banquet, and I'm going, well, yeah, that's a good idea. So maybe I should start thinking about that. And then people that were thinking about running it were asking, and so I'm like, so this has come up in conversation 6 or 7 times. I think the sport, whether it was a promoter or a vendor or a driver asking these questions, I'm like, okay, the sport is speaking, so I'm going to listen. They want a banquet. Well, you guys want me to have a banquet? No, I don't want a shit show. I want something organized. I want it timed. I may even consider some invite only. General admission, catered, ceremonies, sponsor and promoter recognition, motivational speech, individualized award ceremony, and smoke cigars.
I like it. I like that. I mean, that's you've thought that out.
Now, the first person, Jason Cope, threw something out there. I got to find it in messages. He already had an idea about, because I said I want an auditorium. I want spotlights. I want it formal. Would it be fun for us to all sit out in somebody's barn or the hall down at the fair and just get destroyed? Yeah, we'd have fun doing that, but I really want to pay tribute to how special this is on day 7, because that's going to be day 300 plus.
Yeah.
And the date, is it right after Winter Warzone? Is it New Year's Eve? That's why it meant so much to me to nail down the guidelines and stop talking in the driveway in my car for an hour and a half. What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? The guidelines are out. Now I can start looking at the banquet. The points are being tracked. I can start dialing in the process just like we would dial in a carburetor. And one place I called, they didn't have any. It was just local in Dayton, and it was like type in your information, and they came back an email. I read it yesterday that they didn't have anything. So I got to do some research and put some thought into where I could have something like that, but I definitely want it to be a special thing. I don't want to say too much, but I'm so excited. Why wouldn't I share that Crash Course is in? I want, so if there's, let's just say a number of 250.
Mm-hmm.
If there's only 250 people out of 10,000 that would like to be there, those 10,000 plus 20,000 more are going to be watching the live stream from here to Canada.
Yeah.
It's going to be organized. It's not going to be, like I said, some 4-hour crap show. I mean, I want it bam, 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 bam.
Well, those expectations are what we want. And I think that you have a perfect opportunity to set those expectations, especially with the the sequence you rattled off there of how you want to organize this. I mean, that is
everything's simple in my mind, and then you start playing, it's like, oh, what about this? What about that?
But that's what we want. That's what we want, Mark. We don't. I think. Maybe I'm not speaking for the whole Derby community, but from my perspective, I mean, I hear, from my background, people will tell me, I'll tell them, hey, I run derbies, and they'll just be like, they still have that perception of it's just like a hillbilly thing,
Sure.
or I go out in the garage. What are you doing tonight on a Friday night? Oh, I'm out in the garage working. And on what? Like, what are you working? On what are you working on? And I think you doing that can help set those expectations of where the sport can go.
Yeah, and for a long time I had a chip on my shoulder about whether it was a coworker or somebody that didn't understand the sport like we do, kind of treating you like you are a hillbilly or you are a redneck. And I had a mini breakthrough when instead of responding to those people that I'm trying to convince them, no, but there's these drivetrains and there's all this stuff. And I used to keep pictures on my phone, so whenever somebody tried to call me a hillbilly, I could show them all this stuff. Like, yeah, now that is hillbilly. My breakthrough was just embracing the fact that, yeah, we all probably are hillbillies, but we're a good damn bunch of hillbillies that together, I'm arm hair standing up.
Pretty smart.
Yeah.
Together, I just told Tim Clark on the phone the other night, who's the last promoter that just got in with my hometown show to the series. As smart as a guy like that to be as successful as he is, and you take these powerhouses, you figure if I work for 16 promoters, I work for some pretty smart people. You imagine taking all that horsepower and putting it together. Last night during the Derby, I'm sitting there, I'm spaced out, like I'm thinking, come on, do this, do that. And I flipped over my tracking sheet and I jotted something down for Billy, my right-hand man, to read. And then I scratched something out and wrote something else. And then the end of it was, and I took a picture on my phone. So I have no idea what it said, but I just remember thinking, you know what? It's all about what you're willing to accomplish. So first I wrote 30 promoters, one show each for me announcing, all in one series, X amount of buy-in, which I wrote 1,000. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
And I said, same rules. And I circled it and pointed to the same rules and then drew a star and just jacking around, making the Derby go. And he looked at me like, wow, that would be interesting. And once I circled same rules, then he looked at me like, yeah. And that was part of the conversation that me and Tim were having. I had circled the same rules, and then I scratched out 30 and wrote 50 and wrote 50 states, one show per state. All same. I mean, it was kind of a pipe dream, but my point is, and when I say it's not like I just pulled 16 promoters together and had this big come to Jesus and they're all best friends now. That's the furthest thing from it.
Yeah.
But they all work together on a private group. And I think it was because it took out this promoter's better than this promoter. I work for every one of them. They all love me and they all trust me. And they're like, wait, all we got to do is buy into this. And Mark, who we love and respect, does all the work and puts his effort into it. And they're like, well, yeah. So if we accomplish that in about 4 hours, us on a private group. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
If we accomplish that, then why couldn't we accomplish the same rules and put our egos to the side that they made him cut this and I didn't? It's all ego. It's all.
Well, you guys started that same rules pitch a couple years ago, and it went. And it happened, right?
It happened.
But there was obviously some disagreements and things like that. But I think, like, we had this conversation with guys at the Derby yesterday at Sturgis, and don't get caught up on, well, if Mark's inspecting, he's inspecting different than Dustin, and Dustin's inspecting different than Mitch.
It's all ego, 100%.
Look at the positive of having the same rules. Now,
because that driver's at both shows.
Now, do we need a sanctioning body or someone to oversee that to like hold people accountable?
Well, that
Absolutely.
was part of that big vision I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's the vision.
The establishment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get there. Okay, but the ball is moving, and I want to elaborate on this a little bit. You mentioned this, and we don't want to go too crazy here, but you mentioned this. Why has it been stagnant for so long? In my opinion, like we got there with Dent, being on TV and stuff like that, and that was really neat. But then it kind of was stagnant, and then the big show started to pick up again. Now it really looks like the ball is really starting to move, but it's because people like you are moving, you're moving it. And
we gotta stop working against each other and start working together. And I would bet that every promoter that you had that private conversation with would agree 100%, and they would say the same thing. But what Tim said the other night in our conversation is we all say it. Who's actually doing it? And he didn't say I am, or it wasn't like I'm doing it, nobody else. It wasn't an ego-driven statement. It was everybody talks it. Who's walking it?
Yeah.
And when are we going to all start walking it? And this Unified Point Series for me is an example of what we're all capable of when we're all working as a sport, one sport. Everybody's touched this: promoters, vendors, national level teams. Everybody is touching it, whether that's because they want their name on it or they believe in me. If you put all the horsepower demolition derby, that's how you got NASCAR. That's how you got,
we had this conversation again, all the time is I'm like, guys, every motorsport out there is organized. Everyone has a sanctioning body.
It goes in line with everything you guys believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that, obviously we're trying to do and I'm not getting into that because that's not what this is about here. I mean, this is about you and what you're doing and how we want to support you, and we love what you're doing. But that's a conversation for a different day, but it's, I don't know, it's just fun conversation to have,
Sure.
But it's about time to start putting things in play. The time has come to.
Well, to what I said about my conversation with Tim and to what you just said, it's fun conversation. Pipe dreams are fun. We all have them. We joked in the DTV trailer that, they were joking and said, promoting is figured out in the because there's so much going on in the sport. It's so easy to say, I think people should be doing this, or I think people should be doing that. But, if we're about to end, I want to continue to share the quote that I posted the day I started this. Was it's not about what you can dream. It's about, number one, what you're even capable of. What can you even do? What are your resources? And two, what you are willing to execute. Because it don't mean a damn thing to say it if you're not willing to pay the price to execute it. And whatever that price is, then you're either going to just fail or you're just going to sit on the sidelines and never even try.
Well, we'll end it on that. You heard the man. Mark Elliott, thanks for coming on. Mitch, obviously thanks for coming on. Episode 7.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Sweet. Da, 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 da.